Okay, it's been a few days since I made a recording for DSR, but the following video will go over Death of the Heavens of P5 for DSR. There is not a lot of significant things happening during P5. You're going to see that in Death of the Heavens, it's pretty much a rehash of the Sanctity Dash sequence um, with a few minor changes. So the sequence for Death of the Heavens really boils down to: did you study the raid plan? Do you understand the steps that you need to take to make sure that you're in the appropriate position when the sequence is going off? And most importantly, do you have the ability to use your eyes, scan the map to make sure, much like Sanctity Dashes in P2, you avoid getting gazed by both Thordan and the eye that will spawn at the outskirt of the map? And then that's all there is to it. Death of the Heavens, unfortunately, is a choke point for PF and for a lot of statics that will prove to be another wall in DSR. If not every phase in DSR is a wall for people, just because you need to make sure that once again you study in advance and you have a very good idea of where your spatial awareness is as you're moving about the map. But with that said, I'm going to let the VOD play. I'll interrupt at different sequences just to highlight any specifics, and we'll get going. So from this POV where we are, we've just completed Wrath of the Heavens. There is a tank buster. Depending on the tank composition, what's typical is the main threat will invuln this tank buster. And really that's all there is to it from here on. I'm gonna speed this along so we can go into the Death of the Heavens cast. Thordan will cast Death of the Heavens. There's going to be RP on the field that you can ignore. At the end of the cast, everyone jumps away, and the Death of the Heavens sequence begins. So right off the bat, what you need to do is you need to identify where the warrior is landing, in which case the warrior is landing on 3. The warrior will always land on a cardinal marker, depicted by the red markers, the blue markers. And we're going to treat the landing point of the warrior as New North. So in which case, for this example, New North is 3. So you see I flip my camera to face New North. We're waiting for assignments to go out. As you can see, there's a lot of actors on the enmity table. There's going to be dive bombs. There's going to be cleaves going down the middle. What's important right now is you wait for your assignment. Assignments are out. 4 people are going to be randomly chosen for the Doom bait, and then 4 people will not have an assignment. What's typical in PF fashion is to take the Dooms for this first set, for this first half of the mechanic, to the north side. So I'm gonna draw myself here. So we're gonna take our Dooms to the north side. There's a Doom right here. And then there's the Doom right here. And then there's a Doom over here off screen, or rather in my periphery. Dooms are going to go north side. Non-marked players are also going to go south side. Non-marked players, once the cast bars on the enmity table finish snapshotting, the south side people are going to bait a puddle that the Doom people will need to use to cleanse themselves. But I'm not going to focus on that for now, but that is crucial information for you all to know. The other thing to be aware of is, and the solo sim for DSR on Death of the Heavens is really good to train you on this, is looking at the toolbox, making sure that you've read it. There is a priority system, and it's just a visual conga to determine where your location is going to be. I'm a big advocate for using my eyes and using my brain, but PF is very fearful of doing that. So they rely on using this conga when really the conga is just a suggestion as far as the general setup to help people identify their final positioning. So as you can see here, um, I drew these arrows, but for the Doom people, and I drew them for a very specific reason, because based on the calculation that people rely on, dictated by the toolbox, um, the leftmost Doom is going to take the west position, just outside of this ring. You can use this ring as a visual reference to kind of orient yourself if you're gonna be a Doom taking the wings, so to speak. The Doom here on the far right is also going to do the same. They're gonna kind of like position so that they're adjacent to the ring that I'm highlighting here. Uh, I was assigned Doom, with me being to the left of the leftmost person positioning for their Doom. My Doom positioning is going to be such that I'm going to be adjacent to the marker. I'm not going to be on the marker or in the marker. If you're in the marker or on the marker, you're as good as dead because you have a high risk of getting cleaved by the dive bombs that are going to go off and the cleaves from Zeppelin or whoever. What you need to do if you're an inner cardinal Doom person, you're going to position your body so that it's adjacent but not touching that your corresponding marker. And here, third person going from the left, because they're adjacent to the rightmost person, they're going to also take an inner cardinal position, which is right here. Once again, do not be on the marker, do not be in the marker, just be adjacent to it. You know, touch your body against the wall, and you'll be perfectly fine from the dive bombs going off. So that's gonna be the movement that you're gonna see on north side. South side, it follows the same logic. Unmarked player here is going to position themselves all the way at the wall. Unmarked player here will position themselves all the way to the wall on that side. Unmarked player here will position themselves following the same logic that I outlined earlier. They're going to make sure they're adjacent, but they're not anywhere in or on the marker, just on the south side, biasing inward with their back to the wall as I'm drawing here right now. And then same logic as I can't see the other person because they're in the blind spot somewhere, but whoever it is, I'm just going to draw a circle. Same logic, south side. So that's what you're going to see happen. I am assigned Doom marker second from the left, getting into position. And as I'm getting into position, what I like to do is I like to immediately scan the map. And if we look at my positioning once again, broken record, I am not in the inner cardinal marker. I'm just adjacent to it with my back to the wall. It's at this point where, you know, the assignments are out. We're taking our respective positions for our base and our Doom positioning so that we're dodging dive bombs and I'm scanning the map. I can see the eye is on 4 and Thordan on Delta. For the inner cardinal positioning on north side, the instant the enmity bar finishes casting and you blow up from lightning storm, you can use that as a visual cue to prompt you to hold forward, to hold W, and you'll safely dodge into the earthquake that's going off. Everyone else, especially those on the south side, what you're gonna have to do is south side. So looking at this ring, right? If you're south side over here, you'll kind of need to approach that ring, wait for the earthquake to step into it, and then move in. Because if you move in like a lunatic, I'm not 100% certain if that will consistently work for you to dodge the second and the third step of the earthquake. So it is you know, much like P2, it is a learning experience as far as like, okay, you know, what is it going to take for me to dodge this earthquake that's spawning on the floor? But once again, I'm scanning the map. I could see Ion 4, Thordan on Delta, adjacent to my inner cardinal marker, biasing inwards. I hold W the moment I get hit by lightning storm, which is the lightning AoE puddle going off. And so here's the next step. With the non-Doom players positioned to new south, to relative south, new north is 3, if you can remember from the start of Death of the Heavens. They've baited their puddles. So now the Doom people need a position such that they're going to get knocked back because Grano is going to cast a knockback. So in PF, what you'll see is PF descriptions that basically say um, PF descriptions that say Doom's anchor. When you see that, that's what we're doing right now. The Dooms have priority in positioning, and they will anchor into position. They will not move because what we're going to have very shortly is PlayStation. PlayStation's going to assign. Now, in preparation for this, there remember from P1, uh, there are some rules you have to keep in mind. Uh, Specific to PlayStation, in order to correctly and successfully bait PlayStation, to make sure what we want is PlayStation to have the circle baits assigned to Doom Mark players. So what the Doom players are doing is the relative east and the relative west Doom players have to make sure they're the farthest players away from all other players and from each other so that they'll successfully bait the circle marker. The other Doom players are gonna once they anchor in position, they're gonna automatically bait a triangle and a square. And then the non Doom players, they're gonna be given whatever assignment is gonna be given to them. So that's what you're seeing, what you're going to see happen very shortly. So right now the circles are baiting, the Dooms are anchored, and PlayStation is out. Now, very, very quickly, if you remember from P1, um, let's look at the circles. The circles are very far away from each other. So the instant the assignments go out for PlayStation is the instant these circles have to converge back onto the group. Because remember, at this distance, if the tethers spawn for the circles, they're guaranteed dead. They're not gonna survive the knockback. They're not gonna survive breaking their tethers because the tethers will not break. So the instant PlayStation is the sign. Everyone has to huddle in nice and tight, um, in this inner circle right here, this inner circle pattern. And very quick, just to illustrate this, the circle pattern has a pattern such that it'll look like this. You'll have a grid to work with as to kind of help you, whether you're a Doom or you're not a Doom. Understandably buried under a bunch of players, but what I like to do is I like to use the grid in the inner circle here in the POV that I'm going to highlight, and use its grid pattern to help me position. So I anchored my body here, and I believe I was given triangle. Cool. So I am triangle as Doom. I know the square anchored themselves here, and then the circles are going to position here. I really like using this grid pattern because when we get knocked back, the intersections are set, make it very easy to go into the final positioning so that we make sure we get punted into the inner cardinal and cardinal positions on the south side. Because when you get punted, you really only have a few seconds, I should say, to successfully cleanse. Otherwise, you're going to drop dead to your doom. So clearing this, looking at the bot. Once again, Doom is PlayStation's out. We immediately huddle together nice and tight for tethers to go out. We're waiting for the knockback to happen. Knockback happens. If you have high latency, it's safe to pop sprint here just so you can immediately bolt over your puddle. And then that's it. That's all of Death of the Heavens. There's not much going on. There's nothing important going on. You just do the sequence and you burn down Thordan. But what's really important is you also need to be diligent because remember, as we get into our positions, what you should be doing is you should be scanning the map. determine where the eye in Thordan is. And here we go. I'm just going to highlight this real quick for those of you that need the visual. The eye is right here. And I can clearly see, okay, the eye is on purple. And then I'm still scanning around, and then I see Thordan over there. The wing of the dragon is annoying, but I see Thordan near Delta. So to me, that immediately tells me, okay, look at yellow marker. Or, you know, if the configurations were more fucked up where like I and Thordan are like on Bravo and Delta, then I make sure to look at 3. You quite literally have to use your eyes and your brain for this sequence in the event that you don't have callouts available. So get in position, Doom's Anchor, PlayStation, and then knock back. Once again, if you have high latency, just pre-pop sprint to make it to your Doom puddle. Now, what will be very typical is you'll have a range or a caster player trying to hit the meteors that are going to spawn. And they usually prioritize attacking the Northside meteors. So, as you'll see very shortly, when that caster LB goes off, it's going to be caster LB2. If you spend time hitting anything that's going to get hit by the LB, you're wasting time and you're wasting resources, because the meteors on Alpha, 4, and Bravo are gonna die to the LB. Once again, if you're hitting these, you're trolling. You're going to increase the risk of us failing the damage check. You need to hit the other meteors and make sure that the other meteors die. The LBs are strong enough to insta-kill meteors, so the caster needs to be ready, or the range, to position to kill at least 3 of them. We destroy the meteors, and as you can see, meteors died. Thordan comes back, and this is a note for tanks. When Thordan lands, you'll do your group a favor if you just position in the direction that Thordan is facing. He's not necessarily going to face south. Sometimes he'll face a different random ass direction. Please do not spin the boss. Please plant in front of Thordan. Make sure you establish threat. The faster you establish a direction, the faster we can all safely move into position, because immediately upon landing, Thordan will do an auto. And as we can see here, Senna decided to run opposite and flip Thordan around. Thankfully, it was soon enough. Thordan is casting a raid wide. Make sure you mitigate this. Make sure you're studying the mitigation schedule. Thordan is going to auto shortly thereafter. Here comes the auto. And then Thordan will start the tank buster. Now, we do, this is a special note for healers. Depending on how well your Dark Knight does timing their invuln in preparation for this buster, and depending on how hard we're pushing Thordan, as you can see, Thordan is at 7.2% health down here. If we push Thordan prematurely, such that you know, he jumps away, there is the risk for specifically the Dark Knight, because it's happened to me before with the static. The Dark Knight is at risk of dying to their invuln. So you as a healer have to make sure you're actively GCD healing the Dark Knight to make sure their invuln procs appropriately. And especially in the case where we're pushing Thordan prematurely and Thordan stops attacking, or he jumps away. So Thordan does the buster, followed by 3 autos. Auto 1, auto 2, and then, as you can see here, the group pushed him a little early. We got Thordan below 3%, and we're ready to go into P6. The only other note I have for Death of the Heavens that you need to be aware of is In the era of down trail, and with the potency changes and newer food and newer pots, it's inevitable that we're going to severely outdamage this ultimate. But what I would say too is right now in Dontrell, as far as I've observed in different clear parties and also prog parties, is when you push Thordan early, uh, it is possible to push him very early where he doesn't complete the tank buster. The risk of doing so is you will misalign the timing of your pot. I'm sorry, you'll misalign the timing of your buff window, your 2-minute coming back when you're ready to pot for P6. You pot for P6 for extra safety just because there's some configurations in P6 that require downtime. Um, and you don't want to be caught in the situation at the very start of P6 where you pot and then on the tail end with like 10 seconds left on the pot, your 2-minute comes up and you're doing your 2-minute. So the main thing I would advocate for is hold on that buster. If it looks like you're all ahead on damage for Thordan, make sure you hold, make sure you see that buster. You want to see the buster on the tank completed so that your 2 minutes will be aligned with the pots that you're doing. And then this is going to be something that comes back to haunt you in P7 as well. In P7, there's a very specific timing to using pot and delaying your 2 minutes. Because if you don't delay your 2 minute and burn it on cooldown in P7, you're gonna miss a window where you can use your pots and your 2 minutes under aligned to do as much damage as possible in P7. I have been in groups that have pushed into P7. People are understandably a little nervous. They misaligned their pot in 2 minute and we missed the damage check by like 2% or something like that, and we wipe. And guess what? We just wasted like 19 minutes. Um, so that's the only last remaining note that I have specific to Death of the Heavens. Make sure you see the buster. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run the wide POV in at full speed. I'm going to let it play out, and then I'm going to do real-time callouts. So this is a POV of the same pool from um, a very wide POV. We're going into Death of the Heavens. Thordan and the RP are going to jump away, and we're going to find New North. New North is on 3. Flip the camera, prepare for assignment, go to positions, scan the map for Thordan and the Eye, move and dodge the earthquake. Dooms are going to plant biasing south side. We're waiting for PlayStation to go out. We're all nice and tight, and we're preparing for knockback. We're knocked back. Cool. We dodged the gaze. It's the DPS check for the meteor sequence. We're burning down the meteors. Very cool. There we go. Thordan comes back. He's going to cast the Raid White. And then the tank is going to make sure that they get in front of Thordan, wherever he ends up pointing during the Raid White cast to avoid cleaving the party. And then we're going to see the tank buster. Do your best to try to hold and see this buster completely to make sure that your buffs and are aligned with the pot window at the start of P6, and that's it. Death of the Heavens is not difficult. You just need to use your eyes. This is the best piece of advice I have. You just need to use your eyes and make sure you understand what you're doing by studying VODs and by studying toolboxes. But I'm going to do real-time calls for Death of the Heavens at full speed. So I'll go ahead and get started. Death of the Heavens. Center up. 3. Yellow is safe. Doom's Anchor. Yellow is safe. Yellow is safe. Away from alpha. Thordan on red. Thordan on alpha. We're seeing the Buster heal the Dark Knight. Make sure the Dark Knight's healthy. On map transition, we're going to pot. Pot window. 2 minute. And then that's all there is to P5 Death of the Heavens. P6 I would highly recommend doing the solo sim as well to get acquainted for the sequence. It is a fairly long sequence just because there's a lot of movement required, especially on the tank side of things, and the tanks are going to need to make sure they understand the scheduling for their mitigations. But P6 is one of my favorite phases of the ultimates that I've done up until this point. But with that said, that's pretty much all there is to this video.